So yeah, thank you very much, Philip. I will just wait for a moment to see if the questions come in. We have quite a few people online now, and if you have questions, please raise your hand or write your question on the Zoom webinar chat box. I have a question myself, Philip, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's really interesting to see how this federated learning is evolving. So how certain are we that we can do large-scale federated learning and keep data anonymous? So what is the threshold there?
Well, Google's already shown that you can do it across mobile phones. Therefore, the translation of this to IoT devices, where you might be using data from different companies, in a collaborative way, it clearly works. Where there's interest and we're starting to work with insurance companies, and I'm hoping to get something going with one of the big retailers, is where you can get collaboration. Let me take an example. If you were trying to get a new type of food together to fight obesity, you might want to use health data, you might want to work with a manufacturer, you might want to work with a big supermarket, looking at all sorts of things like what consumers buy, branding, right through to the ingredients, etc. Now, quite clearly, Tesco's wouldn't want to make its club card data available to outside organizations, and Bupa or the NHS wouldn't want to make its patient data available. So what we need to do is to get an infrastructure so that you can actually train your machine learning algorithms while ensuring that this data the raw data is protected. So the machine learning algorithms work. There's huge amounts of research going on in the area. What we need to do is to put in place infrastructures to actually mirror what Google and some other companies have done, so that large organizations can share data. So you might have, in real estate, finance companies, big property developers, construction companies, the government, etc. Might be an example of, you have a consortium of 4 or 5 big organizations with very valuable data collaborating.
Right. Yeah. So is it feasible, or is it a good strategy to have data lakes that are publicly available and maintained for the greater good?
I think it's probably naive in that people are starting to realize the value of data. So if I can give you an example, the credit card companies, you can now buy what's called a garden hose of anonymous credit card transactions, and they sell this at £4 million a company. So somebody who's doing investment, for example, in retail, could buy streams of data, anonymous data from Visa and MasterCard, and can use this to see what is, without knowing the individuals, but to actually see what's going through all the supermarkets' tills, not just a supermarket. So in the US, you could look at Walmart, Kroger, Target, etc. This is the sort of future. So, for example, you might have real estate companies in the UK which have got considerable amounts of data in terms of occupancy, footfall, going through shopping centres, all of these sort of things, might start selling this data, as a sort of profitable stream. And obviously, the regulations on privacy would stop them, making the private, the personal data available. But people are starting to recognize the value of data, not just to running their business, but actually as a commodity that they can sell to other people.
Right. There is a question here from Gavin Johnson. He's asking, the object identifiers, are these akin to digital twin? Forgive my lack of technical understanding.
No, the digital twin is I should have mentioned this. One of the great industry trends, particularly through BIM and things like this, is that every object that is likely to have both a digital variant and also a physical variant if it's being manufactured. What the unique object identifier, the digital object identifier does, said this object is uniquely identified, and persistent, and it tells you where you can find it. So what's happening is you might design a particular, let's say a particular product that's going to go into a building. You try and keep it in digital form because that's relatively cheap, and then when it's actually manufactured, that identifier would then you get then probably just extend the universal identifier to say which particular manufactured entity this is, and you've associated both the digital object and the physical object, and you can track it all the way through the life cycle of that particular object. So what the universal object identifier does is like a telephone number. It allows you to identify everything potentially uniquely and find out persistently where it is. So thank you for the question about digital twins. Very important concept.
Yes. Okay. We're running a little bit over the schedule now. So if we can have one final question, if the audience wants to ask something, and then we will have a coffee break. We need this coffee break mainly to encode the video we've been recording. But yeah, please, if you have any other question, a final question, please send it on the Q&A.
Let me just give it a final. I think the automating real estate and construction is, really a wonderful area, for both business opportunities, but also for research. And I would urge everybody, if you want to actually test out, groundbreaking ideas, get in touch with the Bartlett because, they can help you de-risk it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there is this natural thread that emerges, like if you automate the construction sector, then this sets the landscape quite nicely for automating the real estate sector. It one feeds on the next, and it can be incredibly transformative. There's one question. If you're still taking questions, Philip, there's one final question here. Has it been considered converting a physical asset into a unique NFT, non-fungible token?
All of these things are possible, and therefore, what the universal object identifier in some ways is serving the same sort of role as a token in this respect, that you can trade it and all sorts of things. So yeah, a lot of interesting concepts, that come out of these different technologies, like tokenization.
Okay, so there's a question here from Kalantari. It's basically thanking you, Philip, for the great presentation, and also saying how can we make regulators and people in the industry to move at the same pace? How we get people to collaborate?
Yeah, this is so I've done a huge amount in regulation, and what's happening now is we've changed the Financial Conduct Authority from being reactive to proactive. The Treasury and the government see regulation as providing economic advantage. So there's a huge amount of work going on, and I've made presentations to the 60 UK regulators, and the UK government and BEIS, the Ministry of Industry, has got a better regulation task force to actually try and harmonize regulation, because the government sees this as, as a burden on industry, and you've got companies being regulated by multiple regulators with overlapping regulation. So what you need to do is to lobby your regulator to take a guide from the Financial Conduct Authority to actually start automating their regulation and setting up things like, regulatory computer executable handbooks, so that it's a benefit to everybody, and you'll get government support for this.
Great, thank you very much. We will now conclude the session. Thank you very much, Professor Philip Treleaven, for the opening of the conference.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you in a minute. Thank you.